Thanks for the people that actually showed up on this last day, especially after the party last night. Let's give it a start. I want you to imagine this. A skyline of 18 towers, all built from the same foundation, with the same standards, same idea. But as they rose, they basically started to diverge. They used their own materials, they used their own standards, their own architects. This is what represents our data landscape today at ING. All started from the same foundation, but after they matured, they used their own standards, their own feature sets, and their own way of working. But what if we basically take all these learnings, combine it with the best-in-class technology, and build one giant skyscraper? One skyscraper to host them all, where we balance autonomy but deliver global facilities. That's the transformation where we are in today, and that's the transformation I want to talk about. And I hope that I can inspire you a bit with what we have learned down the road, and especially for the ones in the same transformation or that are about to start this transformation journey. So let's get into it. My name is Jarno. I'm Area Lead Data Engineering at ING. 30 years old, live in the Netherlands. I'm passionate about data technology as long as I can remember. Part of our data lake foundation, which I will talk about in a minute, as part of our journey. And that basically also gives me a front row seat in the transformation we are in today, and the transformation I will talk you through. By introducing myself, I also need to introduce the company I work for. ING, for the ones that do not know ING is a global bank with a strong European base. We have about 60,000 employees, and we serve millions of customers all over the world. With introducing ING as a bank, I also need to introduce the sector we operate in. The financial sector is one of the heaviest regulated sectors in the world, with regulations like DORA, GDPR, BCBS 239. Regulation is critical, and with those regulations, data is critical. But data is not, for us, not only a way to innovate, to productize, it's basically our license to operate. And that is the environment in which we need to execute this transformation journey. One step back before we dive into that transformation journey. So the strategy of ING is all about empowering people to stay ahead in life and business. To do that, and to basically do that at scale, technology and data is critical, right? And that's also where our global data and analytics platform comes in. This global data and analytics platform is guided by architectural principles, and I will call out a couple of them. So, modular and reusability. Everything we build should be modular, should be reusable. We don't want to build things somehow the same over and over again in different domains. We want to accelerate and empower reusability. Standardization. Not only using industry standards, but also standardization on our platform. What we build should be standardized so that it also accelerates and enables reusability. And then the last one I want to call out, scalability. We build for scale. We do not build just a solution for one domain, for one entity. No, the solutions we build on our platform should scale across the bank, across domains. The benefits we are after is, in general, a shorter time to market, a lower cost to serve, and increased productivity. So now I have set the scene for our transformation journey. Let's dive into it. Who recognizes this? Exactly. This is just a snapshot of basically our historical landscape, data exchange for one country, one process. So imagine if you do this times 18, times multiple processes. This is what I call a spaghetti architecture, right? So there is no transparency, scalability, hard, reusability, impossible. That is what we were after to solve. And actually, we came quite far. So what did we do over the last couple of years? So from a technical perspective, we started with our data lake architecture. And where I say data lake, you actually can say data warehouses. So we started in a replicated manner where we rolled out 18 data lakes, so a data lake per CIO domain. And those data lakes were powered by Oracle as a storage layer, and the IBM InfoSphere suite. On top of that, we came up with a common data model. The data model was called Esperanto, and it basically served as the data model to actually get insights on the data that were in our lakes. And it also served as a way to exchange data between the lakes. And the lakes itself served as decoupling points in those domains between system of records and consuming systems, both local, global. On top of that technical layer, on top of the data layer, we applied, from an organizational perspective, a governance layer where we had a central data management office defining standards and policies, and local data management offices in the domains basically responsible and accountable for their local data. But although for good reasons we started from this replicated approach, because of domains could quickly scale, we could quickly generate mass, we already had in mind to get to one, to, in the end, converge. That was also the whole idea why we started with that same foundation, right? But when we started to try to converge into one data lake, we quickly found out that although we started from that same foundation, we basically were at a stage where those data lakes applied slightly different feature sets, applied slightly different standards, different way of working, and we basically ended up with lakes in different maturity stages. This, together with the fact that from a technical perspective, we had a lifecycle moment, we needed to move to an upgraded version of IBM, the Cloud Pak for Data, which did not bring us the functionality that we hoped for, and was certainly for us not a way towards public cloud. That basically had us to pause and to rethink. We really needed to do things differently, so not incremental change and try to get there, but rethink how we would get from where we are today towards this global data and analytics platform. Before I get there, so our lessons learned from the journey so far. For all good reasons, we started with this federated approach and those replicated data lakes. But what we realized and what we found out while trying to get to one is the fragmentation across domains. So that basically made it for us very hard to bring stuff together again. Also, on paper, we started with a lean architecture in terms of how data would move from system of records to consuming systems. But in practice, we basically ended up with a lot of hops in between data that needed to move from system of records through different data lakes to actually the consuming systems. So complex reality. The technology limitations I already talked about. That did not give us basically that road to public cloud. And lastly, the pace of business change. So emerging technologies, the business that wanted to experiment faster and faster, bring stuff to production, so shorten time to market. We couldn't simply keep up with the pace on our current technology and our current landscape. So all of this we took into account and we found our answer. Going back to the analogy, the 18 different towers, we took all of our learnings and our answer was, let's build one giant skyscraper. Let's build one giant skyscraper which has all the global facilities. We define standards, but we give the different domains still the autonomy and the room to maneuver while they can make use of these global facilities. So think of, give a domain a floor where they basically define what they do, but they use the global facilities in that skyscraper. So, nice story, nice idea, but how do we get there? So, what we basically started with is, of course, talking to our business partners. What are your current needs? What are your future needs? And that we translated into, okay, what are the capabilities that we think we need to supply on this new platform? This together, of course, with the business strategy of the company, the data management strategy, analytics strategy, our current stack, that what we learned over time, all of that we combined, and that was basically the basis for a program we launched, I think it's 1 year ago, called Data-Driven Banking. So now we have a program. What is the first thing we did? And actually quite cool. So what we did is that we, from our different domains, took basically the best experts, the best architects, the best data management professionals, and we all gathered them in a room for 1 full week. And their goal was come up by the end of the week with the basis, the basic architecture for our new platform. And there were some guiding principles there. Public cloud was like a no-brainer, something we needed to move to, but there were still a lot of decisions to be made. So having those people in a room for a week with this goal, okay, create this basic architecture, but next to that also come up with the short list of tools for each and every capability which we need to explore further, and where we in the end need to select and go to one tool per the capabilities that you find here on this slide. So we took a structured approach during that week, started with external market presentations, right, to see, okay, what's out there, a quick desk research, and then afterwards people came together in groups, formalized around these kind of capabilities and discussed with each other the guiding principles of how to get to a shortlist, and in the end, came up with shortlist for each and every capability you see here. And by the end of the week, we had that work done. We basically called in our higher management and asked for the mandate to continue with the next phase, being the actual selection. So getting from these shortlists towards the actual tool selections. And this orange box you see on the slide behind me is actually where DBT came in. So, but how does DBT fit in our picture? So, our full selection process. I just talked about our define phase already. So that's where we did our design week, where we really kick-started our program. So this second phase, the refine phase, is where we did different vendor demos, uninformed and informed. We defined our use cases, our personas, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, basically have the basis, define the work streams that are going to do the further selection. Then the other three phases, the assess, validate, and select phase. This is what I will guide you through now and where I will specifically focus more on DBT. But I think it's good to know that we did this for each and every capability in this same structured approach. So a couple of things that were basically the basis or outcome of what we discussed in our streams as part of the selection for DBT. So first of all, we move from ETL to ELT, where we, in our current landscape, brought data towards a processing engine to get the data transformed and then push it back into the storage layer. We wanted to change that paradigm, right? Also following the general market approach, we wanted to move to ELT, where we basically use the power of the compute engine to do our transformation work. Secondly, we move from a canvas-based approach to a SQL code-based approach. So instead of clicking together in a graphical interface your data flows, we wanted to move to a SQL code-based approach, basically to accelerate automation and to use the data ops principles, checking your code, automation, all of that. That's something our engineers or a part of our organization was not really used to. We have our analytics engineers very much used to software engineering principles, data ops principles, etc. The other side of the company are data engineers. They know SQL, all of that, so that's good. So that's also SQL code-based. But those software engineering principles, automation, CI/CD, etc., quite new. Then the last thing important for us in these selections is collaboration, and collaboration at scale. So one of the most important things for us is that we want to accelerate and empower reusability over these different domains. Not let every domain build over and over again almost the same thing. So the collaboration features, DBT mesh, the data contracts refer to models, that's basically what we're looking for. So in this selection, we very quickly found out, okay, DBT could be indeed a tool to really select. That's fine, have that idea, but let's validate that, right? So that was basically our next step. So we did a couple of different things there. So we held the RFIs, where we basically scored the tool based upon the functional, non-functional requirements we had. We did a usability assessment. Let me explain a couple of things on that one, because again, the design week was a cool thingy, the usability assessment actually as well. So what we did is that we, from every domain, brought in 1 or 2 engineers And we basically asked the vendors to prepare an actual use case that these engineers then could walk through, and based upon that, could score the usability of the tool, but also vendor readiness, etc. So we did not isolate this only towards DBT, right? Because then we would actually only have the T, a little bit of transformation, and that's it. That's not really a full-blown use case. So we brought together the storage vendor, the vendor for ingestions that we had in mind, as well as DBT, and we asked them to come up with a use case that our engineers could execute in actually one day. That was our usability assessment, and we let our engineers assess, okay, how easy to use is the tool, is it doable, is the vendor actually helping, willing, knowledgeable. Was a very cool day, and we really got some good insights on the usability of the tool. And next of that, there were also proof of concepts in different domains. And we held reference calls, because what for us was also important is that we could use DBT at scale, right? So to give you a bit of a flavor of, we are now from our legacy environment trying to migrate about 200,000 data stage jobs towards DBT. So volume, scale, collaboration at scale was crucial for us. So that was the last element over there. So DBT, all positive. We thought, okay, let's go for it. But DBT comes with, let's say, different flavors. So of course you have the open source, free of use, DBT Core. And we have the SaaS offering, DBT Cloud, I think nowadays called DBT Platform, with all these collaboration features, all these enterprise features that we were actually looking after. So that's looked like a very, very good deal. But it comes with a cost, and we have something to compare, so let's do that. So what we did is that we, next to DBT Cloud that we already looked after, we also looked into DBT Core, and then especially DBT Core in combination with an IDE, an orchestrator, to see if, to what extent we could mimic the collaboration features that we assessed in DBT Cloud with DBT Core and these additional components. And although we came quite far, a lot is possible, it takes time, effort, therefore money to set up, right? And also money to maintain this. So long story short, for our journey, for our company, DBT Cloud, DBT Platform was basically the best way to go for data processing, data transformations. So before I talk about the implementation phase, I want to share with you some key takeaways, key lessons learned. So the first thing, don't start from scratch. Like, there is a lot of knowledge, there is a lot of information already, there are lessons learned from your previous journeys. So take that into account. And the second thing on this bullet point is that Design Week really created momentum and really created focus for this whole journey. Then secondly, cross-domain involvement. That really pays off. Not only because you get different insights, different requirements from different domains, but also by involving these domains from the start, you create actually buy-in, and you create confidence that the tools you select is also actually are the tools that these domains can use. And then how we did the selection process, so the structure, we created throughout this selection process for each and every capability that really help create transparency. And it also helped in avoiding bias, right, towards a single perspective, single tool. And lastly, for us, usability and enterprise readiness equally important. So the collaboration features, super important. But also we have basically two sides in our company, our analytics folks, our data folks. And basically being able to address them both with DBT is something what was really essential for us. Then, implementation. Building up this global data analytics platform in the public cloud. So we could have plugged in a tool and here you go. Let's see where we end up with. Most probably we would end up with the same like fragmentation over the different domains as we already had in our data lake journey, right? So what we did is that we basically took a step back and redesigned our complete data engineering journey for doing data processing on this new platform. And we took into account the ways of working in the different domains. We took into account our way of working on the analytics platform that we had because we combined it all into one platform. And that led towards this new data engineering journey, which is not only about tools, it's also about the processes, the controls, and the standards we apply throughout the tooling and enforce throughout the tooling. And DBT basically sits in the center of that, right? So delivering those data products, driving collaboration, reusability, but also having these standards, having the ability to enforce certain standards, that's where DBT for us comes into the picture. So most of you are already using DBT, so this is not new for you, but looking at the features DBT has to offer, for us, collaboration basically key. The ability to have central governance and to enforce certain standards, but also having local autonomy, that's basically what we were after. Having DBT mesh, where we, in a modular approach, can build within the domains, but also the domains can basically reuse what has already been created, that will help us to have that shorter time to market, increase productivity. Compliance and governance. To have this baked in from the start in DBT basically helps us to comply with these regulations we are under, right? Like BCBS 239, for example. And then data ops enablement. So automated testing, CI/CD, CI checks, metadata linting, all helps us actually to also really enforce certain standards and to define guardrails and lane assists for the domains to be within their own projects, still work autonomously, but have standardization over the different domains. That really accelerates our development and delivery. And lastly, this is not one tool, one platform, right? So the platform consists of cataloging tools, data quality tools, the storage layer, you name it. So having these integrations, the easiness of integrating DBT in this overall platform, that was really key for us. So to sum it up, if you have the chance, do not just plug in a new tool, but really rethink how you would do data engineering. And with that, set the basis for how you work with different tools and how you configure them. So, a federated but standardized model. So, balanced autonomy, do not really standardize and enforce by saying, yes, you need to do this, this, and that, but deliver guardrails and lane assist that actually help the domains. So, balanced autonomy. And then also with that, of course, define standards which enables reusability. Collaboration, already talked about. So collaboration basically helps us to deliver faster. We don't want to do things over and over again. We want to reuse whatever has been built within the domains. Standardization, DBT mesh helps us with that. And the last point for me is governance. Governance and compliance built in. For us as a bank, in the sector we operate in, this is really crucial. And the ability to back that up with the functionalities in the tool, that's for us like, we know that we are on the right track. So coming back to the analogy that I made in the beginning, so 18 different towers, same foundation. However, when they matured, different way of workings, we basically diverged from each other, bringing that back to one skyscraper with global facilities, one global data analytics platform in the public cloud to basically host them all, where we balance autonomy, but accelerate and define guardrails and lane assist on standardization and reusability. That is the transformation journey we are in. I hope with sharing these lessons learned that it inspires you a bit, especially the ones that are in the same transformation journey as we are, and that you can build upon what I've shown today. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I will be around here for the rest of the day. And otherwise, hit me up on LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone.